Mr. Brantley came out of the bedroom and choked her. And while he was choking Miss Crawford,
Ma'am, be quiet or be removed.
She was attempting to kill the most innocent life, the most helpless life of her own child.
19-year-old Alexis Avila faced a deeply controversial trial after she was found guilty of throwing her newborn into a dumpster in Hobbs, New Mexico in 2022. It was all caught on camera. The case, which garnered national attention, resulted in charges of attempted first-degree murder and child abuse causing great bodily harm.
And I felt angry at myself because it never should have happened, but I am truly sorry.
During the hearing, Avila expressed regret for her actions, apologizing for the trauma her son endured in his first hours of life. She acknowledged the pain her actions caused and stated her remorse.
I regret that his first hours of life were traumatic, and I regret that he will always have this in the back of his head and will think I do not love him.
Her parents appealed to the court for leniency, emphasizing her young age, lack of criminal history, and emotional struggles. They described her as being in a fragile mental state at the time of the incident.
I truly believe that Alexis was not in the right state of mind when all this occurred. Your Honor, I ask of you that you please have mercy on her soul.
A therapist who worked with Avila testified that she struggled with expressing emotions and frequently dissociated from her feelings, highlighting her significant mental health challenges. The defense team requested the court consider her circumstances and youth when determining her sentence.
Alexis also discussed how she was never able to express her emotions to others, that she would often shut down or kind of disassociate from what she is feeling and what she is thinking.
Prosecutors, however, argued for the maximum sentence of 18 years, describing Avila's actions as deliberate and calculating. They emphasized that she attempted to end the life of the most vulnerable, a newborn boy.
She was attempting to kill the most innocent life, the most helpless life of her own child.
The father of the boy delivered a powerful statement, saying he would never forgive or forget the incident and that the boy deserved justice.
I will never forgive or forget what happened January 7th. If it weren't for those three angels that evening, we would be here for different reasons.
Judge William Shoebridge, after weighing the arguments, sentenced Avila to 16 years in prison, followed by 2 years of parole. He condemned her actions, stating that discarding a newborn as though he were trash was unforgivable. The sentence aimed to balance accountability with the recognition of her age and mental health struggles.
To toss one's own child into a dumpster like trash is something that it is an unforgivable event by anyone.
Avila had been on house arrest since January 2022 and was credited with 475 days of confinement toward her sentence. She was also ordered to continue her prescribed medications and undergo cognitive behavioral therapy. Following the sentencing, District Attorney Diana Luce issued a statement calling it a clear warning that anyone who harms innocent people will face severe consequences. Sean Corbally, a repeat offender with a history of sexual violence, was convicted of a brutal attack on a woman in her Greenwood apartment, leading to one of the harshest sentences handed down in such cases. The crime, described by prosecutors as vile, disgusting, and evil, left both the victim and the community shaken. The attack occurred at the Ashmore Trace Apartments in July. Corbally broke into the victim's home, armed with a knife, and assaulted her. He issued terrifying threats, promising to harm her family.
Put his hand in her mouth and put the knife up against her neck. After that, the knife never left her side, never left her presence, never left being pressed up against the skin. All the while, he's threatening to kill her and kill her 1-year-old child sleeping right by. So he has the knife in hand, and he's threatening the victim that he's raping, that he's going to use that knife to chop up her 1-year-old kid. It's just, it cannot be more offensive or more egregious.
The victim endured a harrowing ordeal, later describing Corbally as a shame to humanity in a court statement. "I will pray to God for you," she wrote, "that he sends you straight to hell after prison where you belong." Despite overwhelming evidence, including DNA that directly tied him to the crime, Corbally remained unrepentant and denied his involvement. He even questioned the court about how to appeal his conviction and sentence, showing no remorse for his actions.
Did you do this? Are you a monster?
No. I did not do this. Why was your DNA on her?
When you find his sperm in the victim and you are confident in the DNA profile matchup, there's no, all question is removed.
In March 2013, the judge, citing the gravity of Courbali's crimes and his previous convictions for rape, imposed the maximum penalty. Courbali was sentenced to 270 years in prison, ensuring he would never live outside the confines of a cell again. However, in March 2014, the Indiana Court of Appeals deemed the sentence excessive for a single episode involving one victim and reduced it to 165 years. Ryan Blinston, a convicted serial killer, terrorized multiple counties during a deadly spree that left 3 people dead and 2 others severely injured. His violent acts targeted vulnerable individuals, leaving a lasting impact on the victims' families and communities.
To have that guy do that to my uncle, a veteran, on Veterans Weekend. Sad.
Frank Severs, the nephew of Homer Severs and Lorraine.
He liked to fish a lot, liked to hunt. He was a retired mechanic for Tama County. He was a shop foreman. And he liked to restore old vehicles, old pickup, walk every day, you know, in the morning, 2 miles in the morning, 2 miles at night. And my aunt, she never met a stranger. Yeah. She'd walk up to you today and just tell you a joke.
The attacks began on May 23, 2020, when Blinston, a tree trimmer, returned to the Los Molinas home of 88-year-old Severs and his wife, Lorraine, after completing a job. Under the guise of familiarity, he slashed them. Lorraine tragically died at the scene, while Homer, despite battling early Alzheimer's, managed to escape and seek help from his nephew, Frank Severs. Frank described the horrific moment when his blooded uncle stumbled into his home, revealing the shocking attack.
My uncle through my back door, covered from head to toe in his underwear. And I said, what the hell happened to you? You fall down again, fall down and hurt yourself? Because he was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And he says, no, a guy in a mask came in and killed your aunt and tried to kill me. Just did the tree job at her house and he went back an hour later and killed her.
Yeah.
Blinston didn't stop there. He later targeted Sandra George, an 82-year-old customer in Oroville, shortly after trimming her trees. He returned to her home and killed her within hours. His spree continued with the murder of his friend, Vicki Klein, whose body was discovered in the Feather River near Belden on June 21, 2020. Blinston had also torched Klein's car, attempting to cover his tracks.
Prior to our SWAT team arriving in the middle of the night, Blinston attacked him, right? And he was fighting for his life, right? And he was able to get him out of the RV and hold the door shut. And then Blinston armed himself with an axe, right? Mm-hmm. And began to try to break through this door.
In another chilling incident, Blinston attacked his acquaintance Robert Smith, intending to kill him inside an RV. Smith miraculously survived by barricading himself and holding the door shut while Blinston tried to break in with the weapon. By sheer luck, a Butte County Sheriff's SWAT team was in the area and intervened before the attack turned fatal.
Any other night, there would have been nobody to help him, and eventually Blinston would have been able to break through that door with that hatchet. But as it turned out, the Butte County Sheriff's SWAT team happened to be moving into the area. It is a miracle, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but this is a true miracle.
Building the case against Blinston proved challenging for investigators due to the lack of direct witnesses and murder weapons. However, surveillance footage and circumstantial evidence helped secure his conviction.
A case like this was complicated. It was mostly circumstantial. There's actually some surveillance video that we were able to use for the trial as well, just from some private citizens that had some cameras out that were facing the roads. So that was a huge...
Survivors like Robert Smith and family members of the deceased gave emotional statements about the lasting scars, both physical and emotional, that Blinston left behind.
I have to wake up every morning and look in the mirror and see the scar on my neck from the wound inflicted, reminding me of that horrific night.
In court, Blinston showed no remorse, avoiding eye contact and remaining emotionless throughout the proceedings.
Look at anybody, every time I was at court, he would not look at anybody, just sit there and stare at the wall. I don't know how to describe him. No, he has no remorse for anything he did.
Do you feel like we know a motive?
What I have been able to come up with is I've reconciled it in my mind as it was just a thrill to the kill.
He made me realize that evil and monsters actually do exist.
This person is going to be in jail for the rest of their life, and your uncle is not here anymore.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would feel like at this point justice was served?
I don't know. He was a Korean War vet, so maybe not.
The judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms in prison for the murders, ensuring he would never harm another person again. For the victims' families, the sentence provided a measure of justice, even though the pain of their losses remains. Omar Bishtawi and Hana Alolaimi, a married couple from Houston, found themselves at the center of a chilling case of betrayal and violence. The pair was accused of conspiring to kidnap and kill Alolaimi's lover after their affair came to light, culminating in a dramatic encounter.
It's alleged that you were both married to other people, and when the complaining witness's wife found out about the relationship, the complaining witness broke off the relationship.
Alolaimi, 35, had been involved in an extramarital relationship with a driver. When the victim decided to end the affair, prosecutors alleged that Alolaimi and her husband, Bishtawi, 48, plotted a plan for revenge. On the day of the attack, the couple waited for the victim at a restaurant in West Houston, a place where Alolaimi and her lover had reportedly met in the past. When the victim arrived, Alolaimi gestured for him to enter her car. Shortly after, Bishtawi, who had been hiding in the back seat, appeared and confronted the victim, allegedly threatening him with a firearm.
It's alleged that you gestured to the complaining witness, and the complaining witness got into your vehicle. You tried to drive off with the complaining witness, although the complaining witness told you that he had a delivery and could not go. Your husband jumped out from under a curtain that was in the back seat of the vehicle, put the complaining witness in a chokehold, and pressed a firearm against the complaining witness's head. The complaining witness tried to get away, and your husband shot the complaining witness 2 times.
A struggle ensued, during which the victim was shot and injured. Despite this, he managed to escape and contact authorities.
He has 3 children, ages 13, 10, and 7 years old.
Now, it's alleged that you and your wife conspired to kidnap and kill the complaining witness.
Following the incident, Bishtawi and Alolaimi were taken into custody and faced charges of aggravated assault and aggravated kidnapping. The court set Bishtawi's bond at $200,000, while Alolaimi's bond was set at $150,000. Hussein Braveheart, a Minneapolis man involved in a fatal carjacking when he was 15, has faced significant legal developments since the 2019 incident. The crime, which resulted in the death of 39-year-old Stephen Markey, has been the center of controversy over sentencing and the rehabilitation of young offenders.
This is a person that shot my brother to death and left him to die.
In June 2019, Braveheart and 16-year-old Jared Osman attempted to carjack Markey in northeast Minneapolis. Both boys fired their weapons during the incident, with Osman delivering the fatal shot. Osman pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to over 21 years in prison. Braveheart, after lengthy debates on whether he should be tried as an adult, ultimately accepted a plea deal in December 2023. He pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted assault and received a 54-month prison sentence. However, with credit for 1,647 days already served, Braveheart was released almost immediately.
Rena, all in one hearing, defendant Hussein Braveheart accepted a plea deal and was sentenced. And the victim's family members say these developments caught them off guard.
The sentencing sparked criticism, particularly from the victim's family, who felt the punishment was too lenient given Braveheart's involvement. The case drew broader attention, highlighting the balance between accountability and second chances for young offenders. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty defended the plea deal, citing Braveheart's significant progress and responsiveness to treatment during incarceration.
It's a political decision by Mary Moriarty. What she did in this case is she amended the charges so that the judge could not give a sentence beyond that that's available for attempted assault.
However, in September 2024, Braveheart was arrested again in Eagan, Minnesota, after a high-speed police chase involving a stolen vehicle. He was charged with fleeing a peace officer in a motor vehicle. This arrest has raised questions about his rehabilitation and may result in the revocation of his probation from previous aggravated robbery cases, potentially leading to additional prison time. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office acknowledged the seriousness of the situation, stating that if the allegations are proven, Braveheart will be held accountable. A Florida judge faced widespread outrage over her treatment of defendants during court hearings, an issue that came to a head following the death of a wheelchair-bound woman just days after appearing in her courtroom. The incident led to the judge's immediate and abrupt retirement.
Excuse me, don't say anything beyond what I am asking you.
The controversy began during a hearing where the judge presided over two women facing misdemeanor charges. Sandra, one of the defendants, appeared in court in a wheelchair and tried to explain her medical issues. Instead of listening with compassion, the judge repeatedly interrupted her, dismissing her concerns and showing no patience.
Ma'am, I'm not here to talk to you about your breathing treatment.
Her demeanor was described as harsh and dismissive, leaving onlookers shocked by her lack of empathy.
Don't even say yes. Just listen.
This attitude went on with another defendant too.
Ma'am, be quiet or be removed.
The public defender quickly filed a formal complaint, calling the judge's behavior aggressive and an embarrassment to the county. The incident prompted the chief judge of the circuit to speak out, condemning the actions as unacceptable. In a statement, the chief judge reassured the public that the behavior did not reflect the standards of the judicial system. The courtroom was subsequently closed, and the judge was barred from returning to the bench.
Any person viewing that video will see that that was despicable conduct. There is no excuse. Being a judge is a privilege. They are well paid, they are well taken care of, and they have a lot of authority. They are expected, and it's demanded that they treat everyone with respect.
The situation escalated when it was revealed that Sandra, the woman in the wheelchair, passed away shortly after her court appearance. Her family expressed their grief and anger, criticizing the judge's treatment of Sandra.
The judge don't care about people. All she just have power.
In response to the growing backlash, the judge, who had previously announced plans to retire later in the year, expedited her retirement, making it effective immediately. In an email to the chief judge, she described her tenure as a great honor and privilege, and confirmed that her retirement would begin that same day. The tragic story of Alexis Crawford, a senior at Clark Atlanta University, shocked the community and highlighted the devastating consequences of betrayal. Alexis and her roommate, Jordan Jones, were once close friends, living together off campus and preparing for graduation. However, their friendship unraveled in the most horrific way, ending with Alexis's murder. Days before her death, Alexis accused Jordan's boyfriend, Baron Brantley, of sexually assaulting her while she was unconscious.
She went to the bedroom and woke up about an hour later and discovered Brantley and Crawford in the bathroom.
This accusation appeared to be the tipping point in an already strained relationship. Investigators revealed that an argument broke out between Alexis and Jordan, escalating when Brantley joined the fight. The confrontation turned deadly as Jones allegedly suffocated Alexis.
While she was engaged in a fight with her, Mr. Brantley came out of the bedroom and choked her. And while he was choking Ms. Crawford, Jordan Jones put a plastic bag over her head.
Do you think this all boiled down to protecting Baron from a rape charge?
Of course.
On social media, one of Alexis's friends expressed heartbreak and frustration, saying she had warned Alexis about red flags in Jordan's behavior for years. Experts speculated about Jordan's motives, with some suggesting she acted out of a desire to protect Brantley from the fallout of Alexis's assault allegations.
And no remorse that I can see. So we asked again, what kind of person could do that? A person that's unfortunately emotionally, mentally unstable underneath.
Psychologists described her actions as those of a person who may have been emotionally unstable and willing to sacrifice a close friend to shield someone else. The betrayal and lack of remorse highlighted a chilling dynamic between Jordan and Brantley.
Jordan Jones's behavior has been
diabolical from the very beginning.
A lot of times, we're friends to other people, but they, again, are not friends to us. Alexis probably felt she was a close friend of Jordan. She may have even viewed Jordan as a sister and trusted her. But that doesn't mean Jordan felt the same way about Alexis.
Both Jordan Jones and Baron Brantley were arrested and charged with Alexis's murder. In 2022, they were sentenced for their roles in the crime. Jordan received life in prison without the possibility of parole, while Brantley was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. The tragic events leading to the sentencing of Anurag Chandra began on January 19, 2020 in Temescal Valley, California. That night, Chandra became enraged after one of 6 boys in a car played a prank known as Ding Dong Ditch at his home. Prosecutors detailed how Chandra pursued the boys in his car, engaging in a high-speed chase that reached over 100 miles per hour. The chase ended when Chandra intentionally rammed their vehicle, causing it to crash into a tree. Instead of rendering aid, Chandra drove past the scene of the crash multiple times, never stopping to help or calling 911. The collision claimed the lives of 3 BPYs, Drake Ruiz, Daniel Hawkins, and Jacob Ivascu. The victims' families were left shattered, mourning the loss of 3 lives full of promise. One family member expressed their grief, saying that they were robbed of watching their grandson get married, and the same goes for Chandra.
We've been robbed of watching them get married. We've been robbed of our grandchildren with our boys. And on the other hand, Chandra, he's robbed himself of that with his daughters. He will never watch his daughters graduate from college. He will never walk his daughters down the aisle.
We still are surprised that there was no remorse. I mean, he never changed the look on his face. I mean, a normal human being would, you're facing life in prison, so why not show some emotion and be at least a little bit sorry for what you did?
Throughout the trial, Chandra showed no remorse, maintaining a stoic and emotionless demeanor that further angered the victims' families. The defense argued that Chandra acted impulsively and without intent to kill, but the judge rejected this claim, emphasizing the deliberate nature of his actions. For the families, the sentencing brought a measure of closure and justice, even as they continued to grieve the lives that were senselessly taken.
I feel that justice was served. I think it would have been nice to have it sooner. I mean, 3.5 years, but who knew that COVID would happen right after?
It's not going to bring back any of our boys, but we feel that justice was served.
In the courtroom, the families spoke of their pain and loss, demanding accountability for Chandra's deliberate and deadly decisions. Finally, the judge sentenced Chandra to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. For the families, the sentencing brought a measure of closure and justice, even as they continued to grieve the lives that were senselessly taken. Austin Burke, a convicted murderer already serving a life sentence, became the prime suspect in the death of another inmate following an altercation at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville. The victim, 65-year-old Ruben Melendez, who was also incarcerated for murder, died after suffering a fatal blow to the head. Investigators believed Burke was responsible for the attack, though the motive behind the fight remained unclear. Burke's criminal history began at just 19 years old when he was convicted of the 2017 murder of a man in Bristolville, Ohio. His crimes also included involvement in an armed robbery in Cortland and creating a makeshift weapon while in jail. At his initial trial, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 47 years, along with an additional 11 years for crafting the weapon. Following the indictment for Melendez's death, Burke pleaded not guilty to charges of aggravated murder, and felonious assault. His trial was initially scheduled for July 2024, but was rescheduled to October 21, 2024 due to additional indictments related to assaults on prison guards in May 2024. As of now, Burke awaits trial for the alleged murder of Melendez, now 25 years old, and having served 6 years of his sentence, Burke faced the possibility of even more time in prison. If convicted, he could face the death penalty, given the capital murder charges and the specifications related to committing the crime while under detention and having prior purposeful killing convictions. Bella de Garza's case began with a tragic incident in March 2022 in San Antonio, Texas. On that night, Garza, then 24 years old, was driving under the influence of alcohol, cocaine, and Xanax when she struck 18-year-old cyclist Emilian Ramirez. Ramirez, who was riding his bicycle home from work, suffered fatal injuries in the collision. Garza's son, who was in the car at the time, miraculously survived the crash with minor injuries, while Garza sustained injuries herself. The accident occurred near the quarry at the intersection of Bass Road and McCullough Avenue. Witnesses and evidence indicated that Garza had been speeding before losing control of her vehicle. Police on the scene reported that Garza appeared disoriented and admitted to driving too fast, though she could not recall where she was coming from or going to. Upon learning that Ramirez had passed away, Garza showed little visible emotion. Following the accident, Garza was arrested and charged with intoxication manslaughter. Investigators revealed that she had been drinking and using substances before getting behind the wheel. It later came to light that she had previously violated probation multiple times and had been using substances without a prescription, demonstrating a pattern of poor decision-making leading up to the crash.
I'm here today because my son was taken from me in the most spiritual, senseless way imaginable. No parent would have to world right. And I want to love my son, but I also like my own child. Every day since that night has been torture, a constant relentless reminder of what your choices have done to my family. Who knows that knows? Emilian was my pride, my joy, and the hope of the future. He was an 18-year-old about to graduate high school, earning college credits while going to high school. He worked hard to pick up chains, rode his bicycle home late at night, and dreamed of joining the Air Force in the military. He was a brother, a protector, and a role model. He adored his siblings, especially his younger brother Jacob. When I worked graveyard shifts, Emilian stepped up. He woke up Jacob, fed him, liked him to school every day, ran to sleet or snow, and brought him home safe. Emilian was proud of his heritage and curious about the world. During the pandemic, he taught himself how to write and read in Chinese. Since that night he killed my son, my life has been a waking nightmare. You understand what it's like every day, where your first thought in your mind is that your child is gone? Not just gone, but taken in the most fucked up way. You didn't just kill Emilian, you shattered an entire family. His younger brother is filled with rage and anger and still facing trouble in school. Holidays are no longer celebrations, they're battles. How am I supposed to celebrate my daughter Halo's birthday and the 6 days before the anniversary of killing my son? And I just want you to know, when you killed my son, you knocked him out of his shoes. I didn't get to look at him and say, that's my son. You fucking mangled him so bad that I had to do a DNA to make sure that he was my son.
Ramirez's family described him as a bright and determined individual who balanced school with earning college credits and taking care of his siblings. He often stepped up to help his mother, who worked late-night shifts, by ensuring his younger siblings were fed, taken to school, and cared for. His death left an irreplaceable void in the lives of his loved ones. During the sentencing hearing, his mother gave an emotional statement, highlighting the profound loss her family continues to endure and the challenges they face without him.
She's fundamentally a terrible person, and that they're looking at nothing but good things to say. But as we heard from her and her mother, she's had an ongoing problem with depression, and she has fallen into the very bad habit of self-medicating with alcohol and things. She's clearly responsible, and she clearly has a problem. She has no, beyond the minor possessions, there is no criminal record. She's never been before the court. She has a child, she's been employed, and she's been employed while she was on her trial. I believe that the behavior that she showed in October before Marcos's passing is a reflection of her depression and her basically giving up on her life. And death of Marcos had an effect on her. I believe that it's an effect that could cause her that means that she is a candidate for probation. She can't succeed. Now, she feels remorse. She expressed that she's not a person that denies her responsibility. And she has a problem. She has a drinking problem. She has a psychological problem. She has an emotional problem. Everybody that comes to this court, almost, has a problem. And it's part of the court's job to take that into consideration from the point of view of what's best for society. Bella Garza will be, whether she gets prison time or not, she will be again on the street as an adult person with a child. The question is she going to get the rehabilitation that she needs so she can continue and function as a positive person? She will suffer and she will relive this incident for the rest of her life. And it will affect her. But hope the court will consider the larger picture.
During the trial, Garza's defense team portrayed her as someone struggling with depression and self-medication, which they argued had clouded her judgment. They emphasized her remorse for the incident and requested leniency, suggesting that rehabilitation could help her address the underlying issues contributing to her actions.
We're here on this case because of the choices this defendant made for this record. Her blood alcohol concentration was 0.152. Twice the legal limit for one mistake 2 hours after the wreck at the hospital. She also had Xanax in her system, which apparently was free or consuming without a prescription. And I didn't know until today that she had been doing cocaine in the bathroom of the restaurant. And that was part of her intoxication. I guess that's why she was doing 51 1/3 hot air while doing that, and then killed this young man. 18 years old, on the way back from work. And she says in this court that she feels remorse, and that she should feel remorse. What happened was awful. And the choices she made were awful. And I, honestly, am grateful in this case that the authorities, this 17-month-old child who was in the car, who walks away with scratches, it's amazing. It's a miracle. It's incredible that she will never have to feel what Emily is feeling for 2 years. And will keep it for the rest of her life because of the choices this defendant made. And even if her remorse is going to be, which I believe, that she feels terrible. She's not changing her ways. She's not keeping herself from drinking. She had 5 violations before this court was. The entire time, apparently, she was also malpracticing in Xanax without a prescription, committing a felony offense, possession of dangerous drugs, regularly, while on bond in this court for becoming intoxicated, killing 18. She testified just now that she means this. The second death, the child's father is going to be the catalyst, the thing that changes. But killing someone wasn't enough. Endangering her own child wasn't enough. Your Honor, I don't believe that she has in her what she needs to change.
Despite these arguments, the prosecution pointed to her repeated violations of probation and continued substance use as evidence of recklessness. They argued that her actions demonstrated a lack of regard for the law and the safety of others, which ultimately led to a preventable tragedy.
Ms. Garza, I accepted your plea of no contest to count 1, intoxication manslaughter, back on November 19, 2024. At that time, the state waived count 2, and they waived the deadly weapon allegation in this case. The state is also, as part of this open plea, is going to take into consideration 2023 CR 5510. I will need that dismissal. I have really deliberated on your case. I'm very familiar with you because of the violation of the creepcaught bond conditions. And there are a lot of factors that I cannot overlook, that I cannot, despite all the mitigation evidence that your attorneys presented, still pose a threat to our community. You being on probation is me telling our community that you aren't to be trusted in our community. And not only did you break the trust of the court every time that you blew dirty into your portable device at home, but when you make the choice to drink and get in your car and drive.
Garza's plea of no contest to intoxication manslaughter led to the dismissal of additional charges, including one related to the use of a deadly weapon. The judge also cited the violations records of probitop of Garza.
Having found the evidence insufficient to substantiate your guilt, I find you guilty of intoxication manslaughter. I'm going to sentence you to 12 years confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division. You do get credit for the time that you have served in this case. I will make no other, I did make an affirmative finding that a deadly weapon was used in the commission of the crime. I don't need the state to affirmatively plead it, I do find it. Restitution in the amount of $1,490 payable to the Office of the Attorney General Victims Compensation Unit, case number 22182246.
In November 2024, the judge sentenced Garza to 12 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, with credit for time served. The court also affirmed that her vehicle was used as a deadly weapon in the incident. Additionally, she was ordered to pay $1,490 in restitution to the Victims' Compensation Fund. The judge declined to consider shock probation, emphasizing that the evidence presented did not warrant further leniency. Chloe Alexis Driver, a 24-year-old mother, became the center of a tragic and high-profile case that began on December 8, 2020. On that day, police in Canton, Georgia, responded to a distressing 911 call and found Chloe and her daughter, Hannah, in Chloe's bedroom. Both had suffered severe wounds. Hannah was rushed to the hospital, but succumbed to her injuries shortly after arrival. Chloe, who had also inflicted wounds upon herself, was hospitalized and later charged with her daughter's murder.
Very long time. I have an email from Ms. Robert from February of 2023. Ms. Robert and the district attorney's office sought out us to sit down and talk to Ms. Driver at the jail in an attempt to work this case out. I take issue with the assertion by the state that we categorically rejected the felony murder, guilty but mentally ill, life with parole option. What we have always strived for in this case was a reduction in the charge that appropriately reflected the mitigation that Ms. Driver suffered, the mental illness aspect of it, but I'll also go back to this email. This was at the request of the state to sit down and talk to Ms. Driver at the jail. This was also at a time where the district attorney's office was well aware that there had been communication for a very long period of time with Mr. Ben Michael at the jail. In that email, the purpose of this case, the meeting, was to determine what information Ms. Driver possessed about the criminal culpability of Ben Michael, aka Brian Joyce, which could be presented at a proper under oath under any potential plea of guilty that she may enter. The way that Ms. Robert is categorizing the plea negotiations in this case are inaccurate. The state, during that meeting, Ms. Driver told the district attorney's office and myself she was continuing to contact Mr. Ben Michael, provided them information that they didn't previously have, which subsequently led to the discovery of a bunch of other phone calls. Ms. Driver told them that. She was honest with them about it. What the state is not talking about here is the suicide aspect that was involved in this case, that the state was looking at this from all angles with the other people's involvement in terms of criminal culpability, but also with regards to her mental health. That has always been what this case is about. She exercised her right to trial because she has the right to do that. She exercised her right to trial because the state of Georgia, despite these plea negotiations and the evidence in front of them, did not want to recognize the mental health aspect and what we were asking for in terms of a lesser charge. Ms. Driver exercised her right to trial to show this world what that gentleman is like, what life with him is like, to put before this world that she is not the only victim of this person, and that in an attempt that maybe other people will be aware of what this involves. She has always accepted responsibility for the actions. We saw it at the hospital. We saw it with Detective Cruz. We've seen it in subsequent interviews with the experts. She has never denied what happened. She's never denied what she did and what she did to herself. And she understands what needs to be happen. At this point in time, Judge, the fact that she's talking to another individual is irrelevant. She's allowed to do that. They're not talking to you about any other phone calls where she may be talking to her parents about what happened. There are plenty of phone calls where she's on the phone with her mom and her dad, hysterical in tears about what happened and knowing what it did to them and to everybody else that is affected by this.
The defense centered their arguments on Chloe's mental health, presenting her as a woman in the throes of severe psychological distress. They introduced expert testimony detailing Chloe's mental state at the time of the incident, arguing that she was experiencing significant decompensation, which impaired her ability to think rationally. The defense also highlighted her struggles with mental illness in the years leading up to the tragedy, contending that these challenges directly contributed to her actions. They sought a reduced charge, asserting that Chloe's mental health condition warranted consideration as a mitigating factor. Her attorneys described her actions as a result of a disconnect from reality, arguing that her psychological struggles clouded her judgment and drove her to act in a state of mental breakdown.
I would just like to say that the defense's stated objection with regard to all of the sexting she was doing during the trial was relevance. Not dispute as to whether it occurred. The state served all of those on the defense. It didn't find it necessary to read every disgusting message into the record, but the state's position is that her general moral character is admissible at a pre-sentence hearing, so it is relevant, and it also demonstrates a lack of remorse in terms of the timing and the context of when those messages occurred in relation to the days we were watching her daughter die on video and reviewing the autopsy photographs. That is the reason the state brought that information before you.
The prosecution, on the other hand, built a case arguing that the murder stemmed from Chloe's involvement in a polygamous group and claimed jealousy motivated her actions. Prosecutors alleged that Chloe wanted her husband's undivided attention and saw Hannah as an obstacle. They portrayed Chloe's actions as deliberate and pointed to evidence suggesting a calculated act. The prosecution emphasized the gravity of the crime, arguing that despite any mental health struggles Chloe faced, her behavior demonstrated awareness and intent. To underscore their point, the state introduced evidence from text messages and other communications, which, and they claimed, showed a lack of remorse. They described her actions as unfathomable and a severe breach of moral responsibility. After hearing arguments from both sides, the jury delivered a verdict in December 2024, finding Chloe guilty but mentally ill on charges of malice murder, felony murder, cruelty to children, and aggravated assault. This verdict meant that while the jury acknowledged Chloe's mental health struggles, they also held her criminally responsible for her actions.
I appreciate the opportunity to be heard during this whole process. I am terribly sorry for many things in my life, but most of all for who was lost, and I always will be. Every single day I live with my guilt. I have drowned in sorrow and regret with such an acute awareness of it for so long, I never imagined there would be anything more. more than that for me. Quite frankly, I didn't believe I deserved anything more than just that. In the past, I genuinely believed I had to die every day for my daughter, to hate myself for my failure in protecting her. But I know now that life goes on whether I suffer or not, so I need to stop taking from it. I know now that I must live for my daughter instead and do the best I can to be kind and loving and giving, because that's exactly what being with Hannah taught me. I see her everywhere, in everything. She lives on and shows me that beauty can be found anywhere, even where I'm going, because I can feel her in my tears. I feel her in my friend's embrace. I see her in a stranger's kindness, in someone's undiluted joy at seeing their loved one. I hear her in people's laughter, and I know her most of all in my family's loyal love for me, even still. No matter how bad our losses, life can be good again, and this is not my end. I accept my punishment with peace, and I want it to be known for every person that has prayed for me, that our Father has heard you, and I have been given a contentment that the world cannot take away. My daughter's memory rests now, so I am able to as well. I want it to be said that no one ever plans to lose control of their own mind. This trial was only a snapshot of my life and mind. It's easy to review the past and say what could have been done differently. It's even easier to say what someone should have done. But that's just it. In the midst of a terrifying situation, you can't actually think. The horror and fear you feel clouds your thinking abilities and disconnects you from reality. So though I may not legally meet the definition of insanity as of today, I know in the bottom of my heart that I was, because I never would have done what I did had it not been for my decompensation. In the end, we can't go back and undo the bad, no matter how much we want to, but we can learn from it and prevent it from happening again. I will continue to seek help for my mental illness because of this. I read once that suffering is cheap as clay and twice as common. What matters, though, is what each man makes of it, and I promise I will make the best of whatever you give me, Your Honor. Thank you.
At her sentencing, Chloe gave a tearful statement expressing deep remorse for her actions. She described the overwhelming guilt she lived with daily. Her words reflected her acceptance of responsibility and her desire to make amends by seeking help for her mental health and finding purpose even in her punishment.
But based on the evidence at trial and based on particularly the mental health testimony, the court will impose the following sentence as to count 1, malice murder, life in prison with the possibility of parole. Count 2 and count 3 are vacated as a matter of law in that you cannot be sentenced to more than one murder count when there is only one victim. Count 4 merges into count 1. I agree with the state that count 5 does not merge into count 1 as it contains a different element. That is that the victim is a child under the age of 18. That is not an element of malice murder specifically. So as to count 5, the court imposes a sentence of 20 years to serve in the state prison system concurrent with count 1.
Chloe was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole and an additional 20-year concurrent sentence due to the victim's age. Under Georgia law, Chloe must serve at least 30 years before becoming eligible for parole. The tragic story of Amari Hall, an autistic girl, began in November 2021 when her mother, Brittany Hall, and Brittany's partner, Celeste Owens, reported the girl missing from a hotel in Gwinnett County, Georgia. They claimed Amari had wandered off during the night. However, inconsistencies in their accounts soon raised suspicions, prompting an investigation. Days later, Amari's body was found in a wooded area in DeKalb County. She had been hidden under construction debris.
Well, as a crime scene investigator rather than supervisor, the job duties entail responding to crime scenes, documenting the scene as it is upon our arrival to the scene. That includes photographic documentation, sketching of the scene if necessary, scanning of the scene using a 3D scanner if necessary. And then after we have documented everything as it was upon our arrival, we will perform multiple searches of the area to locate any items of evidence that might be within that area. Upon locating items, we do collect evidence from scenes, which are ultimately brought back to our crime scene laboratory for processing. Processing simply meaning examination for fingerprints or blood or DNA evidence that can be sent either to the GBI or our fingerprint analysis unit.
Were you a crime scene investigator in November of 2021?
I was.
And were you working on November 23rd, 2021?
I was.
Were you called to an area near 1457 Stone Mill Trace?
Yes, I was.
Is that located in Stone Mountain?
It is.
Who else was called out to the scene with you that day?
That day, I responded along with crime scene investigator Sabrina Lopez, crime scene investigator Eva, now Larson, but then Kubler, along with Detective Lawson and Detective Carter, and then a few other members of the detectives unit at that time.
Did the medical examiner's office also arrive at that location eventually?
They did. They arrived slightly after.
Evidence presented during the investigation revealed disturbing details. Deleted videos recovered from Owen's phone showed both Owens and Brittany Hall engaging in harmful actions toward Amari and her siblings. Further digital evidence, including internet searches such as "How does sewers on the streets work?" suggested premeditated efforts to conceal what had happened. Owens had also rented a U-Haul, which investigators connected to the disposal of Amari's remains.
And can you describe the specific area where the child was found off Stone Mill Drive?
Yes. So on Stone Mill Drive, the natural area or wooded area to the left-hand side of the roadway, near the concrete blockades, there was approximately 11 feet off of the curb. There was a fallen tree in that natural area, and there was also a fair amount of construction debris. It looked similar to a dump site, but the construction debris was leaned over the fallen tree, so you couldn't really see the area where the body was located from the actual road because the construction debris covered it. So the deceased was located in a kind of a depression in the ground, not necessarily something dug out, just a depression in the ground right behind that fallen tree and construction debris.
And can you describe for us the condition of the child's body when y'all found her?
Yes, she was located with 3 white-colored trash bags around her body. She had one that had been slipped over the head, came to an end point around the abdomen. The second was over the legs and stopped short of the hips. There was a 3rd trash bag that was wrapped around her abdomen, torso area near the center and tied with a black colored rope. You could still see her body through some of the trash bags. She wasn't fully covered. She did have lacerations on her arms. Her left eye, her left eye was missing from the skull itself, and she did have fairly significant skin slippages, which is where the skin begins to separate from the muscle and tissue underneath.
During the trial, the testimony of Officer Kia Jimenez, a crime scene investigator, provided additional insight into the condition of the crime scene. She described the wooded area as a dumping site with Amari's body hidden under debris.
This would be State's Exhibit 128. Can you tell us why you took this picture?
This photograph was taken just to establish the location or the area that we were in. There weren't any actual numerical addresses near where the body was found, so the roadway was used.
And then this is State's 129.
This is going to begin a series of my photographs showing the general area that road placard was actually located in near the entrance of the condominium.
And this is states 130.
Yes, this is the pan to the right from the street sign showing the actual signage for the Stone Mill condos.
So the stop sign we just saw will be to the left of this view?
Correct.
And this is 131?
Yes, this is a photograph showing the view from Juliet Road down Stone Mill Drive towards where the deceased was located.
And 132?
This is a photograph at the end point of that same roadway. You'll notice these concrete barrier blocks here at the bottom. You can see them in the previous photo. These blocks appear to have been placed to close off an additional entryway to the condominiums, which are located near the top right portion of the photograph.
You should have a pointer.
Oh, it's under here. Thank you so much.
You can feel free to stand up. Of course.
So the condominiums would have been located here near where this vehicle is located, and then they extended along the back side of this wooded area.
And the stop sign and street signs we saw earlier would be behind us from this view the way we're looking.
That is correct.
Okay. And this is states 133.
This is a photograph now turned back to the left. You can see the concrete barrier blocks here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And this area here will ultimately be where the deceased was located. There is a fallen tree that this construction debris is laying atop of.
This is states 134. We just moved a little closer.
Correct.
We'll go to the next one. This is 135.
This is now a side view. Once I have entered the wooded area, you can still see the construction debris here near the upper right-hand corner. And this recessed area behind the tree root ball, you can begin seeing the trash bags that I referenced earlier, which is what the deceased was located within.
And this is states 136.
This is a photograph of the deceased in the 3 trash bags mentioned previously in the recessed area behind the fallen tree.
Is this the condition of the body upon your arrival, or was it previously covered, or do you know?
This was the condition upon my arrival. I do not know that anything was done prior to my arrival.
Okay, so you're not sure if it was covered previously or not?
From what I was told, this was a fair and accurate representation of what the detectives located.
That's fine. This is 137.
This is a photograph just showing the additional trash bag that was located around the center of the deceased body.
States 138.
This is a photograph of the head area.
It looks like the bag is ripped. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is true.
Is there any indication of how that happened? Do you know? You may not. I'm just asking.
From experience, it looks consistent with animal activity.
Okay. This is states 139.
This is a photograph of the deceased face showing the missing eye and the open area.
This would be 140, I believe. Right? Yes, 140.
This photograph is after the medical examiner had arrived to the scene. The body was removed from the recessed area and placed on the medical examiner's body bag. And this is to show the backside condition of the body.
What's the blue thing under the white plastic?
That is the body bag itself.
Okay. And then states 141.
This is a photograph of the front of the body showing the previously mentioned lacerations and skin slippage here on the left hip.
And then finally states 142. Is this just further down towards the feet?
Yes, this is just showing the knotted trash bag on the legs.
Detailed crime scene photographs and sketches were presented to the jury, showing the lengths taken to conceal the girl's remains. The medical examiner testified that Amari had suffered multiple injuries and wounds in various stages of healing. At the time of her death, she weighed only 54 pounds, showing signs of malnutrition. The official cause of death was determined to be battered child syndrome, highlighting prolonged abuse and neglect.
Based on that, the court does hereby sentence you as follows. Count 1, malice murder. You are hereby sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
count 7 merges with count 3.
7 into 4.
I'm sorry, 7 into 4. Count 6 merges into count 3. And count 5 merges to count 2. Counts 2, 3, and 4 are vacated by operation of law. On the remaining counts, counts 8 through 18, and counts 19 and 21, the court does hereby sentence you to consecutive 235 years. So life without parole plus 235 years. You will never see the light of day to perpetrate this type of behavior, cruelty, and evilness upon another person.
In December 2024, Celeste Owens was found guilty on multiple charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and cruelty to children. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 235 years, reflecting the severity of the case. Brittany Hall was also found guilty on malice murder, felony murder, and cruelty to children, is awaiting trial. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.